Fragments of silicon, not dissuaded by the light of day.
All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Daylight Interviews. Joining us this week is Chris of Cramp.
Howdy, thanks for having me.
Indeed, thank you for being here this week. Right, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studio, and all of that assorted business, and we begin this journey by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Let's start with the professional level. Nothing yet. I'm still doing this beside my day job, primarily for recreation and fun.
Well, when we say professional, we usually define that as, a commercial project.
Oh, okay. Then, let's start from the top. So basically, what got me into game programming was like a buddy of mine, 25 or so years ago, who showed me the magic of coding with Quick Basic back in the day, which instantly hooked me on the idea of making my own games. Fast forward, like I said, 25 years, I realized I hadn't done so, although I nowadays have a job which does involve coding. I studied some computer science. And on a bad day, on a really bad match of first-person shooters with my buddies, I think it's called an uninstall rage quit, and decided to this time get the game done.
How long ago was that?
It was almost 3 years ago, I guess.
Sounds about right. We found that, when people stick their toe into video game development, it usually takes about 2 to 3 years to get to this point. This point being, from what I can tell, this is a fully released game, correct?
It is, yes.
Yeah. The difference between that and like early access.
Yes, it is fully released. I considered early access for a while, but scratched that idea and went for full release.
Okay. And I suppose we should get to the game proper here, and that is Thumbtank. So, for the uninitiated, what is Thumbtank?
Thumbtanks is like someone else said, it's a love letter to old school split screen couch gaming of my childhood and early youth, like the SNES, Mario Kart, and such titles. Maybe throw in some N64 GoldenEye. So back in the day when multiplayer was being in the same room with a bunch of guys or girls and annoying each other while playing games.
I gotta admit, with the style of game here, it doesn't really make me think of split screen multiplayer. It reminds me of the Tanks game in We Play. If you're familiar with that title.
I am, and it's probably also it's one of the game I hold close to my heart. There is some ideas from that game in it as well, but basically I'm more coming like from when I was in not kindergarten but primary school, aged 6 to 10. The games I played were like NES, SNES times, but obviously the tank aspect from the what was it? Wii Party was this called,
Yeah.
I think, the tank game, which was probably the only good one on that whole CD. I can't deny influence of that game as well. Sure.
Right. I'm just saying, it's an interesting juxtaposition because that game, and indeed, if you want to go back to its ancestors, like Combat on the Atari 600, Armor Attack on the Intellivision, it's like these games were decidedly not split screen. So it's an interesting take, intentionally or not, on the genre. You know, and it also allows this game to be bigger because you're not confined to a single screen here.
Well, and it also, for the starting game developer, gives you the opportunity to not have to worry about AI in regards to opponents. You got to figure out how those behave. You offload that burden to your co-players.
Very true, very true. This is why, going back to Combat, that's why it's one of the earliest Atari 2600 games. All of those didn't have AI because that was a bit beyond what they could do at that particular moment in time.
I think the Atari would have burst into flames trying to make a NPC move on its own.
At that point, yes. I mean, you will eventually get AI in Atari 2600 games, but that's when the developers come to grips with the limitations and all that.
Well, not just that, but the price of memory for in the cartridge gets cheap enough that you don't have a $7,000 game.
Well, I'm more referring to the concept of bank switching.
Yeah,
that's something that allowed the Atari 2600 to do bigger games without inflating the cost of cartridges.
Right.
I'm like, but that's veering off the track here. So I'm assuming this game is built in Unity?
It is.
Yeah. That tends to be a popular choice for novice video game developers, especially if you're doing something like this.
Yes, I made an early prototype of this idea like 8 years ago, or even 9 years ago, on what was it called? Model Game, which was like an open source implementation of like Microsoft's XNA framework, which is like the earliest version, which I then scrapped and forgot for about like 5 or 6 years. And so someone I talked to back then pointed out that those things called gaming engines I should take a look into. And basically that's when I stuck my toe into Unity for like one weekend back in the day. And then it was like probably the only engine I had ever any experience with when I came back to this idea 3 years ago. So that's how I settled on Unity. No other reason than it's the only one I even opened once.
That's a good as any reason, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Unity will work fine and well enough. Though I'd imagine this is the kind of game that can be built in quite a few engines I could rattle off. But that's neither here nor there.
Probably. I spoke to some people who said this was like this would have been way easier doing it in Godot, but I'm in no shape or form qualified to judge that. I have been told for this kind of game, other engines might be more suitable. I wouldn't know how to come to a conclusion regarding that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure we can speak to that either, mainly because we have the occasional guest who works in Godot, but
I think we can still just need two hands to count the number of Godot devs we've had so far.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more like Game Maker or Construct. Yeah, which are dedicated 2D engines.
Right.
But like I said, it matters little in this case because it's a simple tank 'em up here. That being said, this kind of game is a bit of a tough sell on PCs. So I'm wondering how you've been able to approach the marketing for Thumb Tanks here.
Mm, it is a tough game to sell on PC, you're right. So the criticism I hear the most is people are saying, "Hey, actually, this is a nice game, but this is so a console game and not a PC game." From the split screen to the fact that the controller is by far the superior input for this. I hesitantly added a keyboard input for at least one player because everyone was asking about it. This is a console game. This is inspired by console games. So regarding the marketing, again, I didn't have like a structured approach to, let's say, anything regarding this game. I started off trying to make a game, made what I was capable at any point in time, and what I wanted to figure out. And this applies also to the marketing. The marketing was like reading some stuff on Reddit and trying to reproduce it without any experience or any way of judging whether or not I succeeded in it or not. Besides probably game sales, which are okay, which are on track to what I imagined a game like this could do, but are rather low. So let's put it this way: if I would have to live from the income of that games, I would be here today a broken man. But luckily, I am not. I kept my day job, which turned out to be a good choice, and can smile at it and look at it like as a hobby. I used to say one day when my kids come to me and say how boring their dad is, I can show them to Steam page and say, "Hey, how many Steam games you got on Steam?" Thought so. So basically, it's something like I said in the beginning. I always wanted to make a game, and now I can put it on my resume. Game developer.
That is true. And, that is the upside of not just the indie scene, but, your level of commitment to the indie scene. You have made the game you wanted to make, market be damned, and put it out there for the world to experience. And we have a fair amount of developers who take that route, but we also have a good amount of game devs who make this their 9 to 5, and thus, what they're making is much more committed, financially speaking.
Yeah.
So,
and I admire them for taking that risk. It's like it's from the narrow view into this industry I had. It's like 1 in 100 game is making enough money to pay the people that made it. So I really salute those people who get all in on that thing and quit their day job and go through their savings, hoping to get a financial feasible game out of the door.
indeed. And you also picked a game that's complemented the path you chose. In, like, I'd imagine if you had a full 24/7 schedule to dedicate to this game, I'd say this would probably take about 6 months, at most.
Probably. Given
maybe a year, just going by simple simplicity, because as you noted, you don't even have to code AI for it. Much less, since it's a split screen game, you don't have to code netcode.
Yeah. I played around with the netcode and online multiplayer idea for like 4 weeks, and then realized that this would add for someone at my level of knowledge regarding this, at least another year to get this out of the door. And then I decided, this is probably anyway not the type of game people are going to join lobbies and wait for half an hour to opponents to come in. So I scratched that idea. I laughed the idea for a while. got a little bit into Unity, net objects, netcode for game objects and stuff like this, but then realized, this thing is not making me any money anyway, so probably let's get it done, get it out of the door without online multiplayer. But you're right. Knowing about game development, quote unquote, what I do now, which I learned somewhat the hard way over the last 3 years, to make this game now, I would probably say yes. 6 months is probably a fair estimation of how long it would take.
Oh yeah.
And like
there's
with the good thing of it being out now, if you come across someone who's more versed in like online multiplayer or like AI production, you're like, hey, I have this game. Let's work together and make a sequel with, NPCs and online multiplayer.
Sure. If for some reason like this game gets a tiny fan base and people keep bugging me about, hey, where's the multiplayer? I'm open to revisit it again. Sure.
Either add it in or sequel or what have you, depending on how the stars align.
Probably start over with a new one, because like this is the code is a mess. So I started.
Believe me, that
yeah.
is very common sentiment for people's first game.
And I do a lot of coding during my day job, but game development is a different beast from what I do in my
it
job
really
as a web dev.
We've seen so many people who's like, yeah, coding's my day job, and you couldn't get me to code a game to save my life.
So
that's another reason why people pick Unity.
Exactly.
Anyway, so delving a bit deeper into Thumbtanks itself, how much content is there? Like, how many maps are there? How many tanks are there? Are there different tanks? Do they function differently? How many modes? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, let's start with map. There is like one map, but the map is procedurally generated on start of every match. So you basically got one map or unlimited maps, however, which way you want to put it. And you can, if you don't like the map on match start, you can press a button and then make it generate a new one, which looks better to you. So there was one arena map which always was the same exact square map at start, but in testing I realized that once the players or the testers played the island map, the procedurally island map, no one went back to that boring arena. So it's probably still in the code somewhere, but I scratched that idea. Regarding tanks, there are 8 tanks or 9 tanks if you count the one in the supporter package DLC. All tanks basically have the same functionality. Besides that, every tank has like one special weapon which is exclusive to this tank. At least in some game modes, there is like a quick play mode where you get a random special. But so there are 9 different tanks, each with their own special weapon. One has like a cloaking device. One has like an EMP blast, which stuns opponents nearby. One can call in air support with special weapons. So those are the 9, let's say, characters or tanks in the game. Regarding game modes, I would have to count. I'd say 5 if you don't count that there are like team modes of some game modes. Like there's deathmatch, there's team deathmatch, there's elimination, there's team elimination. But if you don't count those, I would say it's 5. Oh, and I added with the last update, because people were asking for like a solo/cooperative mode, I added a 6th one, which is basically a survival kind of mode where you have to shoot crates, collect blocks before the time runs out, which would be the 6th game mode.
And are there destructible environments?
No, they're not. On the arena map, in fact, there were like wooden walls you could destruct over time. On the island map, there is not.
Okay. And are you seeking to update the game in any fashion?
I'm Short answer, yes. I'm at least going for one more update. I want to add a tutorial to the game because like getting the fundamentals is still a bit tricky, which is something I see with every tester or every time I see someone playing the game on Twitch when I'm yelling at my telly, use the right stick, come on. So it's like this is one thing I really need to add. Also, yeah, in general, I expect to make one more update to make the game a little bit more intuitive, to make the UI a little bit more intuitive. Maybe I still have an idea for like a 10th tank with a 10th special weapon, so to speak. And after that, I'm probably on to the next one. Besides, if people show me or send me game-breaking bugs, I'm committed to get rid of them. But probably after the next bigger update, the game will be finished.
Okay. And have you given any thought to bringing Thumbtanks to any other platform?
I have given thought, but it's not financially feasible. When you look up like what you got to pay for a Unity license to publish to Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and so on, there is like a somewhat hefty price tag on it, and also you got to you got to get accepted by Xbox, Nintendo, and so on, Sony, to release on those platforms, and is probably will lose me money trying to do this. So that's
Fair enough.
never say never. Honestly, I would love to see the game on the Switch, for example, but
Yeah,
this
something
is
like a
rather
Switch would be a
unlikely.
great place for something like this because it has the two controllers already built into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, what about mobile?
Mm, I have not entertained that thought so far. I so far I have not seen some things as like a mobile game.
Yeah, I think the problem with a mobile would be you either need to pull off something with netcode or like
Yeah.
local. Because like just trying to multiply people on one phone, this would be very, very difficult.
Well, yeah, the solution here is you'd have to make this a tablet app. And even then, that would be awkward because I don't know what the local infrastructure is on like an iPad.
Mm.
So could be very messy there. You
Mhm.
know, as far as the game operating um in general, like it'd be an awkward fit, but you know, this kind of game has been a staple of the iPhone since like 2008. Like I remember I Dracula. You know, not
Mhm.
exactly the same, but it's a twin stick shooter kind of thing with the virtual thumbsticks. You
Mm.
know. Anyway, so um I suppose my final question here is where does your game dev journey go if it goes anywhere else after Thumbtanks?
Right now, I'm working on working on a second title is to say too much. I'm playing around with an idea for a mobile game. In fact, after learning, quote unquote, learning game dev, doing this, and it almost took me 2.5 years. Half of the ideas I had or things I tried didn't work out. Basically because they weren't as fun as I thought they would be. So like 50% of features I coded didn't survive the first evening when I went downstairs to my girlfriend and said, "Hey, let's hook this up, let's give it a try." And we realized, oh, this is incentivizing gameplay which isn't fun at all. And so now I want to do the quite opposite, like have an idea not fully, but vastly figured out what I want to do, and then just go out and, let's say, produce that idea, and not like, let's see what I'm going to do today, and then figure out 8 hours later it isn't really fun, or sometimes I'm not capable at this point in time to do this. So I want to, as like a bit of like a personal challenge, have a game idea for even smaller game than sometimes, to be honest, but something I have completely, quote unquote, designed with a design document, and then be able to go out and like get it done in 6 months beside my day job. So this is what I am playing around with at this point in time.
Okay. So the journey does continue.
As of now, it pretty much looks like it. Yeah, it is still a great hobby. So beside all the struggles of marketing or like investing into assets, not knowing if you get your money back, it is a great hobby.
Okay. All right. So I think I've run through my gamut of questions. Petty, Alex, do you have anything further?
I think I've asked all of mine.
Yes, I think you asked everything that I was particularly curious about.
All right. All right, Chris. So I want to thank you for being with us here today and talking about thumb tanks and your game dev journey with us. Um, and it's been an enlightening conversation. And thankfully, a lot less pressure filled than these things can be.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so,
No. Thanks for having me.
no problem. No problem. Anyway, so the game is Thumb Tanks. It's currently available now on Steam, and it does have a demo. So I guess you can try before you buy. Just be sure to have a second player handy, since this is PvP only. But if you want to pick it up, you can buy it for, well, the spring Steam sale just started, so it's going for 33% off at $6.69, and the Founders Pack is going for $10.04. 33% off, $9.99 and $14.99 respectively. Right, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. As always, be sure to tune in next time for our Sunday reviews. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.